Hurricane Sandy was the largest Atlantic hurricane on record. It began to affect Lynbrook on October 29, 2012, when wind speeds began to increase in the morning with light drizzle during the day. The hurricane began almost unnoticed 7 days earlier, just south of Jamaica, and by the weekend, it weakened to a tropical storm halfway up the east coast of the U.S. Then, it strengthened into a superstorm. In its aftermath, 254 people died in 8 countries, 300 homes destroyed, and $70 billion worth of damages inflicted. Hurricane Sandy caused widespread damage and disruption to the village of Lynbrook. On the south shore of Long Island, the storm brought heavy rain, wind, and a storm surge, leading to significant coastal flooding, power outages, and damage to infrastructure. The storm also had a major impact on people's lives, with thousands evacuated from hospitals and nursing homes, and many experiencing limited access to essential services. 100,000 homes on Long Island flooded. Lynbrook's preparation and immediate response to Hurricane Sandy was a part of one of New York's largest mobilizations of public services in New York history, and demonstrated the dedication of the workforce to recover and rebuild. 2 days prior to landfall, Lynbrook officials attended a briefing by the governor and county executive to prepare for the storm, obtaining additional supplies, testing generators, topping off fuel oil and gasoline, and scheduling staff to respond to many anticipated street trees that would be down and roadways that would be blocked. When the hurricane originated in the Caribbean Sea on October 22nd, it moved across eastern Cuba as a major hurricane and emerged into the western Atlantic Ocean. The National Hurricane Center expected that Sandy would become extratropical at some point before hitting the New Jersey coast, but there was uncertainty in the timing. To avoid potential confusion, the agency did not issue hurricane and tropical cyclone warnings. Instead, the National Weather Service issued high wind warnings reflecting the expectation of wind gusts over 58 miles per hour. As early as October 27th, the NHC forecasted a 4 to 8 foot storm surge inundation, which they later increased to 6 to 11 feet. A week after it started, Sandy made landfall near Atlantic City, New Jersey on October 29th. It was a large cyclone with gale force winds about 1,000 miles in diameter. Sandy's northwest track toward the coast drove a wall of water into southeastern New York from New York Harbor as well as from the Long Island Sound. Along the coast of Long Island and across the New York metropolitan area, the storm's large size produced record-high tides and a significant storm surge, which is the rise in water above the normally expected high tide. The timing of the surge coincided with the normal high tide, as well as a full moon, which added to the increase in water. The Frankenstorm, as dubbed by the media, reached Lynbrook by 7 a.m., with winds at a modest 20 miles an hour, steadily increasing to 30 in the afternoon, and then 70 by dinner time when the hurricane made landfall in New Jersey. Most damages resulted from flooding due to tidal storm surges along the south shore of Long Island and North Shore, not by the winds. The storm surge caused a breach in the island of Long Beach and flooded all of Island Park and Bay Park. Lynbrook Mayor Alan Beach commented that thanks to proper disaster planning, Lynbrook excelled in the response to the storm event and thanked all, including the volunteers of the Lynbrook Fire Department. The day before, New York Governor Andrew Cuomo declared a state of emergency for every county in the state. The Nassau County Executive ordered volunteer evacuation areas south of Sunrise Highway, in Lynbrook, and throughout Nassau. Shelters were open in Levittown, Locust Valley, Nassau Community College, and SUNY Old Westbury. In Suffolk County, officials ordered mandatory evacuations for residents of Fire Island and in surge zone areas. Despite the mild winds, by midnight, Lynbrook had approximately 400 downed sidewalk trees and electric utility wires, resulting in blackouts for 20 days. After 2 months, there were still 8,200 people without power in New York City. The electric substation on Whitehall Street in Lynbrook suffered major damage as well. For days after the storm, traffic lights on Peninsula and Merrick were still not working due to the damage to electrical utilities. Without electricity, gas stations could not operate, creating a gasoline shortage, and lines began to form at the few gas stations that had generators. 5 unfortunately perished from carbon monoxide poisoning due to running their generators indoors. Although 1 million lost cell phone service, residents found solace in being able to recharge their cell phones on automobile electricity when service became available. Police Chief Brian Palladino recalled, "Working the night that Superstorm Sandy struck Long Island was an incredible experience. I think that Lynbrook was very lucky. The closest any storm surge got to Lynbrook was evident when I drove down toward Lister Park and saw that the river water had risen to the bottom of the stop sign at the intersection of South Park Ave and Chester Road. Otherwise, there was not a lot of rain to speak of. However, the wind damage had brought down a numerous amount of trees around the village, causing just about all of the traffic lights in the village to go out. I can remember vividly the sounds of desperation coming from the Nassau County 4th Precinct radio channel, from parts of East Rockaway, Oceanside, Island Park, and 5 towns, where police officers were trying to get people out of places that were inundated with the 10-foot storm surge. The Nassau County Emergency Services and the Bureau of Special Operations set up a command post at the Lynbrook Long Island Railroad Station to dispatch small watercraft to the areas inundated with rising storm water. Power was out in most of Lynbrook homes for at least 3 days and up to 10 days after the storm had passed. We were dealing with traffic control at the gas stations that had cars lined up for blocks with people trying to buy fuel for their vehicles and their generators. The noise from generators lasted for weeks as a cold spell hit the area just after the storm and many homes had no heat. It was not a great experience, but it could have been far worse for the people of Lynbrook. JFK, LaGuardia, and Newark were closed, and thousands of flights were canceled due to flooded runways. As of early morning October 31st, nearly 3,000 flights were canceled. Many businesses closed in the city of Long Island the day before to let employees get home before the transit system shut down. Broadway theater owners canceled all of October 28th evening and October 29th performances. One of the units at Indian Point Nuclear Power Plant was shut down because of external electrical grid issues. An estimated 250,000 vehicles were destroyed during the storm. U.S. stock trading was suspended. It was the first 2-day weather closure since the Great Blizzard of 1888. All state parks on Long Island were closed until further notice due to downed trees, dangling branches, beach erosion, and damaged boardwalks. Most schools closed in Nassau and Suffolk counties, including Adelphi University, Hofstra University, Molloy College, Nassau Community College, and Stony Brook University. Long Beach sustained over $150 million in damage. Kings Point at the western end of the Long Island Sound recorded a storm surge of 12.65 feet above normal tide levels. At the southern tip of Manhattan, a storm surge of 9.4 feet was recorded, corresponding to the 14.06 feet above the average low tide. This was the highest water level on record. Flooding was so extensive in Bay Park that Lynbrook Department of Public Works was dispatched on a mutual aid basis to help with the cleanup suffered by those who were flooded there. The Long Island Railroad remained closed for 10 days. Nassau Intercounty Express and the Suffolk County Transit were suspended and had greatly limited service for the storm. In response to the flooding of tunnels and other infrastructure, the United States Army Corps of Engineers sent its National Unwatering Team. Despite all the flooding, rainfall in Central Park was less than an inch. The day after, over 190 firefighters fought a 6-alarm fire that destroyed 111 structures and damaged another 20 in Breezy Point, Queens, just 12 miles from Lynbrook. The recreation center at Bryce Park was used as a staging area for the New York State Fire Swift Water Rescue Team. The entirety of Fire Island was inundated a few blocks inland by the floodwaters, eroding protective dunes. Sandy's large circulation and storm surge inundated parts of the Hudson River Valley, more than 100 miles upstream. 71 out-of-towners displaced by the storm stayed with Lynbrook friends and family and were given permission to park overnight on the streets throughout the next year. On November 6, some of the state's residents that had been evacuated for Sandy were evacuated a second time due to the nor'easter that brought New York high winds, rain, and snow to areas of Long Island. Over the next 2 days, Lynbrook police received 89 calls for arching wires and downed tree limbs. 400 members of the National Guard went door to door to deliver meals and supplies to elderly and homebound residents. Governor Cuomo signed an executive order allowing displaced New Yorkers to vote in the 2012 United States elections at any polling place in the state. Unfortunately, even parking on higher ground did not spare this man's truck from being flooded. Approximately 25 homes in Lynbrook suffered wind damage that did not get repaired for over a year. Superintendent of Public Works Phil Healy worked around the clock while his own home was flooded, recalling that during the night of the storm, it was a challenge to be out. The counties of Nassau and Suffolk imposed odd-even gasoline rationing, as New Jersey had, to ease congestion and frustration at filling stations. The military opened 5 temporary mobile gas stations, providing up to 10 gallons per person. As of November 6, police reported 41 arrests in New York City stemming from fights at gas lines. Looters posed as utility and rescue workers, and arrests were made for criminal siphoning of gasoline out of vehicle gas tanks and thefts of generators. Some ignored advice to evacuate in advance of the nor'easter of November 7th in favor of protecting their property with the National Guard, state police, and by neighborhood watch groups. On October 28, 2012, President Barack Obama signed an emergency declaration for the state of New York, allowing localities to be reimbursed for damage expenses. Within 3 years, FEMA and New York State eventually reimbursed the village of Lynbrook for its cleanup and emergency response expenses, totaling $460,000. While this was intended to extinguish the financial expense to the village, the storm and its impact to Lynbrook will not be forgotten.